Okay, so the 47th Triennial Assembly of the General Grand Council of Cryptic Masons International will be Saturday, September 26th of 2020, starting at noon Mountain Daylight or 1800 UTC. The agenda will be published by September 1st, 2020, and it'll be a comparatively brief meeting. You know, we're not going to get together and hang out for 5 days. We're going to spend about 4 hours sitting at our home computer looking at all the people we'd rather be hanging out with and having a scotch. Monty will still be having a cigar, though, guaranteed. The venue is going to be what we're on now, Zoom. All of the normal online protocols are going to apply. Please mute yourselves when you're not speaking. Use the raise hand function to be recognized. Identify yourself, first and last name, and then your subordinate or grand counsel so that we know who you're speaking for. And then if you could be concise, say what you've got to say, and then give over the mic. There's two reasons. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people on the call, but also anybody who's having technical difficulties, who has a problem hearing what's going on, if you keep it brief, it's going to be easier for them to be able to know what's going on. Before we move on, a very important aspect of this is going to be practice sessions. Practice sessions are going to be before the meeting for 10 or 20 days before the meeting. So right now, the rough schedule is around the time that registration for delegates closes is when we're going to start meeting to have people able to practice. This is important because this is where most people have the most problems, is on getting on the Zoom meeting, making sure their microphone and speakers work, etc. We want to get all of that handled. We'd love to get all of it handled. We want to address as much of it as possible before we're actually in the meeting. That way, we've got a good idea that the vast majority of the people can connect. Because doing troubleshooting while we're in the meeting, probably not going to happen much. We're going to maybe we'll pull you out to a breakout room, maybe, but really we've got a great group of folks, a great group of companions that are going to be dedicated to the Zoom meeting, but they've really got to make sure of other things, so they're not going to have a lot of time to do troubleshooting. So follow, the online stuff, best practices, but really encourage your voting delegates, encourage anybody who's going to come to log on to the practice sessions, because you really want all of those bugs worked out with people and their computers beforehand. Activities, and I've been saying this all day, so I'll say it again. We're going to have introductions in there. That's the only thing that's not on the list, I think, at this point. Reports, most of them are going to be in writing, and they will be posted on the website. Election of officers, installation of officers, adopting a budget, the CMMRF board meeting, and then some awards and recognition. That's going to be the basics of the day. Those reports that are posted on triennial.org, they're actually going to be in the format of web pages, because we're using the Google Translate service in order to have an automatic translation of all of the pages. I'll show you that after a little while. But on any of the specific documents, the Constitution and bylaws of the General Grand Council are in the process of being translated into Spanish and Portuguese right now. We're looking for people who will do the other languages that people want to see, or would make it easier for our voting delegates to be able to participate, such as Greek. I picked on him earlier today. I hope he's not gonna, beat on me, but you know, if we can get things like French, we've got 4 countries that are French based speakers. We've got 2 that are German. You know, there's other languages that we do need, but right now, like I said, Rodrigo is on our translation team. He's doing a lot with translating the Brazilian, the Portuguese, Brazilian, and I don't know how that, you know. We've got a couple of guys from Mexico working on the Spanish, so we're getting there. Those documents are going to be particularly translated, Constitution and bylaws, and we'll get to the point where I tell you about emergent legislation. Anything that is specific to our craft and law, that is going to be specifically translated. All the reports, we're going to rely on Google, the Google Translate mechanism. The reports are going to include the proposed budget, and we're planning to publish by 9/1/2020. Elections. There will be no nominations from the floor. CMMRF at large positions, that deadline's already passed. That was July 15th when the board met. The General Grand Council office candidates need to declare by September 1st of 2020. When you declare, you send in your letter of declaration, etc. It goes up on the site. All of them are put on the site so that everybody can see, read, contact, etc. Voting. This entire meeting is going to be one man, one vote, but a nuance, a very particular nuance, is that it's going to be one connection, one vote. Everybody on this call is on their own connection, and that's what's needed. The example I've been using is if 3 guys are in a room, 2 of them better be on a smartphone, and this is where they vote. It doesn't matter if they talk and hear through one computer, but if they want to exercise their vote, they're going to need to be on a separate connection to the meeting. So let people know that so that they don't gather in groups, because it's, you know, let's be frugal. Let's get one connection that we know works and get 10 people in a room. You don't want to do that with voting delegates. You want each person to have their own connection. And knowing that now, there's time to make it so that that works. The delegates, obviously past, most illustrious past Grand Masters from each of the affiliated Grand Councils are going to have their own vote. And the dais officers from each of the affiliated Grand Councils are going to have a vote, and they are the only ones who can proxy their vote. Subordinate councils and constituent councils of Grand Councils that are under dispensation each get one vote. So the council gets together, and actually, as Monty clarified, if you've got a prearranged set of rules that identifies how your subordinate council is going to have somebody represent the council and the council's vote at the triennium, great. If not, better to go ahead and get the council together, have a vote, and say this person's going to this companion's going to represent us. That nuance that I kind of quickly mentioned, a Grand Council under dispensation, the officers do not get a vote because they're not yet a chartered organization. So when you're under dispensation, all of the councils that are a part of your Grand Council that are chartered, each of them will have a vote. When you are a chartered Grand Council, then your 3 dais officers and your past most illustrious Grand Masters will have a vote. And the proxy and designation forms are on triennial.org, and I'll go over that in a few minutes. Legislation and planned rules. The legislation, the normal legislation, has been postponed till a special assembly, which is tentatively planned for the same weekend as the Grand Encampment Triennial Conclave in 2021, and in Minneapolis and in the same hotel. That's not announced. That's not set in stone until after the election of General Grand Master, who's the only person that can set that. Ritual adoption will also be postponed. The only thing you might see is emergent legislation, and that's going to come from Jurisprudence Committee when they decide that there will be. So it's there now, and it's either going to come out or it's not. And when it comes out, these are the documents that we're looking to be specifically translated, so that when somebody's looking at them, they can look at that document and then look at the Constitution and bylaws and see what's actually going on in their native tongue. So that's how we're going to facilitate that. The registration is through the website triennial.org. The process for voting delegates is you go and register and describe what you're going to be if you know you're going to be it. Your registration is sent to the registrars, and then what you do is you download the form for a designee or a proxy if you're going to use it, and then the appropriate people fill it out. For a proxy, the officer giving the proxy needs to be the one that the signatory, and then it's attested to by the Grand Recorder and sealed and sent to my office. The designee, whoever is designated, the illustrious master signs off on that. The recorder signs it and seals it, sends it to my office. This is very important. Don't put it in the mail. That can get lost. Take a picture of it, scan it, whatever, and then email it to me. And then the registrar's job is to take the registrations and the documentation and put them together. Come up with a credentials list for the tellers. The tellers will then isolate people who aren't supposed to be in the room during votes, etc. Okay, it's $10 to come to Triennial. When we went through this, there was a long series of getting ready for it. There was testing systems, working with grand councils like Florida, who happens to be on this call, that gave us a really good introduction to what one of these can be. Florida had 220 delegates. Georgia had 170 some odd. We got a lot of, let's see how this can work, and we facilitated, them being able to do their grand assembly and or full grand sessions. And a lot of them are we're kind of amassing this team of people, and we have been for the last 6 months during the COVID activities. And a lot of them are the ones that you're going to see or hear about being a part of the credentials committee. And anyway, the upshot of that is we actually knew what we were doing. So when the trustees said we're voting online, I brought in this laundry list of stuff, and all of that was approved. Every single one of those was approved by the trustees, and that's where $10 came from. It was $10 to $20, depending on how many people show up. And then they said, you know what, we've saved on travel, so it's not going to be a General Grand Council donation to CMMRF. When you pay your $10, PayPal is going to get its cut for processing your credit card. All the rest is going to go to CMMRF in your name and in your Grand Council's name. The trustees decided to do this because we didn't have travel, so there's room, number one. Number two, CMMRF isn't having a great year this year because of COVID. So they were able to take this opportunity to not only give to CMMRF, but this was what was going to be charged because there are the expenses that are going to tag along with it. So all of that being said, your $10 is going to a little bit of PayPal to pay for using the credit card transaction. The rest is going to go to Cryptic Masons Medical Research Foundation. I would very highly encourage you guys, everybody you know, whether they're a companion or not, to start looking at the articles that have been coming out on crypticmasons.org, some of the videos that are going to start coming out. They're doing a lot of work, and it's a lot of good work, and it's not limited to the United States on its impact. Okay, so instead of doing the questions and comments, I am going to go ahead and bring this up. Can everybody see a web page now? We had issues with that earlier. We actually go to the web page. Somebody nod. Rodrigo, are we looking at the web page?
Yes, we're looking at it.
Okay. Everybody's doing the whole palm. Okay. So on the front page of the web page, here's your candidates for General Grant Officers here, for Cryptic Masons Medical Research Foundation here. There's another place where you can go and look at the candidates and get more information on them. And then there's an about. Now, if you go and click on about, not the drop down, but the about page itself, what you're going to see is basically everything that I've talked about today, and a bunch of the people who have spent a lot of their time and effort in helping us to put this together. So, but if you've got questions, some of them might get answered here. One of the questions that people might have is, okay, there's a difference. Okay, if we're translating the documents, how do we get the rest of them? Well, everything else, all of the reports, all of the bios, all of the everything else are going to be in web page format, because up here in the upper right hand corner, if you have not tried it before, you can switch the language. Costas, can you read that?
Yes.
Excellent.
Clear. Don't worry. I'll find out at the Triennial org. So
Excellent.
it's excellent.
So when you're, you know, so, and the idea behind this is the documents need to be specifically translated, because sometimes they're going to have particular words that we use as Masons that might be translated by Google as something weird. But the general information, the reports, it's not going to be heavily cryptic. So Google should get you at least most of the way there. And if there's any real challenges, then we can address that when we find them. But this will get you to the point where, and it is sticky. So you go from here and you go to download the documents. So under the about, there's a place where you can go to the information that you can download, and that's all of the documents. The first one is in the delegates folder. And by the way, if you didn't notice, the translation is sticky. So as you navigate the site, it keeps translating. If you've got a really slow internet connection like I do apparently right now, it'll go to English first and then it'll do its translation. That's so that they can make money off of it. But so this is the triennial designation. This is for anybody in a subordinate council or a constituent council of a grand council under dispensation. And then there's the proxy, which is for a Dias grand council officer who is not going to be able to make it. Last thing I'm going to go over is the registration form. And on the registration form, the only thing I'm going to make sure that everybody knows to do is, if you got somebody who's going to be a delegate, then they need to put that delegate information in here. So when you come down here, you have to say, I am a Cryptic Mason or a Royal and Select Master. When you do that, the area of your council experience and your council service comes up, and so does the delegate portion. When you're looking at the Grand Council office, if one of your delegates is the Grand Master or the Deputy, they need to have that declared here. This is where we look for what office they are as a delegate. Many of the other...
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Very good.
When you declare yourself a delegate, this is the delegate portion, and you can say, no, I'm not a delegate, or I'm a most illustrious past Grand Master, or I'm a Deus officer of a council. And again here, Deus officer of a council, we're going to rely on you putting the appropriate office in and then matching it up with your Grand Council.
Okay.
If you are a delegate, then it's going to ask you to select, and it's delegates and proxies at that level. So you're going to have to select whether you're a delegate or you're a proxy to a Grand Deus office. So the delegate is going to ask you what council you're from, and the proxy is going to ask you what office you're representing and what Grand Council you're representing. So filling out this form in toto is going to give people like John less stress. So please fill it out. And especially up here where it asks you, how are you connecting? And they can know if you're on Windows or if you've just kind of flown in with an Apple and they're just going to say, I'm sorry, you're on your own. Oh, hey, Monty.
Sorry?
Nothing. Or if you've got an Android, but that's going to give them an idea of whether or not you of what platform and how to help you best. So at this point, there we go. Does anybody have any questions, comments, allegations, things left unsaid?
Steve,
Well,
that's Jamal. Do we have an attire for the virtual meeting? No.
I'm sorry?
Do we have an attire? Like upper coat? No.
I'm going to be in a purple suit with my apron and jewel. And if you show up in a t-shirt, I'm going to be jealous.
Okay.
You know, if you're representing a Grand Council or a council, and you are, go with what the most illustrious Grand Master says, or for subordinate councils, go with what your illustrious master says. That would be the way that I would come out. You know, normally treat it like a grand sessions. Show up in purple. If it's a really hot day, wear a purple tie with your short-sleeved white Oxford shirt, and don't let us see that you don't have any pants on.
Yeah, I won't.
You know, it's actually a fact that in the clothing industry, sales of shirts has gone up a little bit and pants have dropped off. I mean, that's actually a fact during COVID. It's, I don't know, that might be kind of scary. Anybody else? Any other questions? Vic, you good?
Steve,
John?
will this be available, this presentation?
Thank you, sir. As soon as the trustees give it their blessing, I will send it out to the general grant officers, the regional deputies, and the grand recorders from every council and the recorders of every subordinate council. So I'm kind of relying on you all to give it to the people who need it and pass it along.
How soon before they look at it?
One of them already has.
Yeah, but he doesn't count.
At least two of us have. One of them had some feedback. Hopefully I've addressed it, but we'll see.
Okay, because I'd like to set up a Zoom call with all of my past most illustrious and my deus officers to go over this. Since I was delegated to be here.
You know, if everybody does that, then everybody will be informed and they can make an informed decision. So that's actually really cool. Yeah, I'll get that to you as soon as I can.
Thank you, sir.
Costas,
Yeah.
any questions? Any questions?
After discussing with the Grandmaster all the issues, perhaps there must be some questions. I'll
You have
try to
WhatsApp?
find out where we'll be in contact.
Okay. Yeah, email me if you have WhatsApp. I'm on WhatsApp. Let me know.
Yes.
Rodrigo, anything?
Yeah, well, it's not our case here in Brazil. It's not our situation. But just to make things clear to me, and maybe just out of curiosity, but in case of charter grand councils, each individual council has a vote, or only the diocese offices or the grand council and the past illustrious grandmasters?
When there's a chartered grand council, it's the deus officers and all of the pasts, and that's it.
Yeah.
Mel, any other questions?
So does that mean grand officers, vice grand officers, and past illustrious grandmasters can vote, right?
Yeah, diocese grand officers of a grand council, chartered grand council, diocese grand officers, specifically the grand principal conductor of the work, deputy grand master, and of course the most illustrious grand master. They all have a vote, and that vote is proxyable. All of the past most illustrious grand masters have a vote, and if they show up, they can exercise it. They can't send a proxy.
So they cannot send a proxy.
Pasts cannot send a proxy. Only the sitting deus officers can send a proxy.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, just to clarify, it's one man, one vote, correct?
Correct.
All right.
One man, one vote.
So, one of my deus officers wanted to give his proxy to a past most illustrious Grand Master. I told him he couldn't do that. Okay, just verifying. Thank you.
And you can't have it either, because we need you as a teller. Most illustrious, Manny.
Yeah. Good morning again.
Do you have
I
a
was
question?
going, on about the registration. I was looking at it. There is this option on the state. However, there is no particular state for the Philippines. And how will I accomplish the registration form?
You know what?
The box to be indicated the state where am I residing. There's no particular location for the Philippines, and it's mandatory to accomplish it. To select the state.
Must have country, of course. Country.
Yeah, there you go. Select the country and NA pops up.
Don't worry about the state.
No worry. Okay.
Yeah, select your country, and then the state will close down. You know what? I've never had to deal with that, so I didn't know that. But if you go to the country first, then the state fills itself in, which is kind of annoying, and I apologize for that. But this is actually the first time I realized that. I didn't notice that before. So thank you for pointing that out.
So will I be able to register online despite of leaving it blank, particularly on this with the state?
Oh, you're not leaving it blank. Just choose the country, and it puts in it. Can you guys still see my screen? Oh, I stopped the share. That's why.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see it.
Okay. So when you choose Philippines, this comes up NA. So that's answered because it's NA. So it'll answer it for you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. No problem. Okay.
Steve, you're such a slacker. Now we're gonna make you do this for another 3 years.
So,
Sorry.
Steve, on your presentation,
Sir.
change the CMMRF board meeting to CMMRF corporation meeting
Got
or
it.
corporate meeting.
I can do that. Okay. Any other questions?
And move the adoption of the budget up above. I know this isn't an agenda, but anyway, move the budget adoption above election of officers, and then resend it out.
Okay. Actually, give me just a second. I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna ask if there are any more questions about the presentation. No? Welcome back, Alessandro.
Did you send the file that you promised this morning to the emails?
I'm sorry?
I remember the morning, the first meeting today, some brothers asking that you send the presentation over the email, just to confirm that if you are sending.
I am going to. It has not happened yet. And the reason it hasn't happened yet is Monty's giving me corrections, improvements. Okay.
All right. Because I want to
All right.
spread that.
Jonathan, are you good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Paulo, anything?
No,
Okay.
Steve. Fine.
Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop recording